I find Tommy Robinson to be a very fascinating character, and not just because of the media campaigns against him and all that nonsense, but the fact that he stands for something raw, powerful, and very needed in democratic societies. I am referring to the ability of a single person to organize a mass of people to seek the change that society often needs. These people are hated by the ruling class and are often labeled with all sorts of demeaning jargons. In our modern times, the fanciful terms are racist, far-right, and all these buzzwords that are intended to make the average citizen despise them. But truly, Tommy Robinson is none of these things. Now, I don't know about your personal feelings towards Tommy Robinson as a person, but you cannot doubt the fact that Tommy's actions tend to elicit a reaction or a thought even if you regard yourself as a passive observer. This is the true essence for the existence of the changemaker in any society. And I'm afraid it's not about the binary notion of good and evil that you have been taught. I know that most people don't like Tommy Robinson, but I also find it funny that on every 5th of November, some of these same people will light fireworks in remembrance of a man that was hanged as a traitor for his attempt to blow up Parliament. It seems on a purely instinctive level, you understand the deeds of Guy Fawkes and his actions to fight the persecution of Catholics under King James, yet you fail to recognize that the same fight for culture and society has always been happening, but it's always been between governments and their citizens. Now, regardless of your personal feelings about Mr. Robinson, I want you to understand that I don't care, because I am about analyzing the actions and purpose of changemakers in a society. And make no mistake that Tommy Robinson is a changemaker in modern day Britain. And whether you like him or not as a person will never change this simple fact. For you see, it's not a mistake that there have been more attempts by the British governments to persecute him than New York ever did with John Gotti. And it's not a mistake that terrorism charges were brought up against him, which were fairly dismissed by the courts. Because to those that wield power in a society, a person like Tommy does terrorize them, simply because they are willing to put themselves on the line to show you where your supposed rights in that society actually ends. And in most cases, you will find that you are not as free as you think you are, because the only difference between where you are and where he is can be as simple as a police stop. So let's begin.
All right.
In all of human history, there have always been changemakers that have shaped the course of events in societies. They come in all shapes and sizes, with all kinds of backgrounds. They are often industrialists like Rockefeller and Jeff Bezos, revolutionaries like Fidel Castro, George Washington, and Che Guevara, and pioneers like Marie Curie, Oppenheimer, and Tesla. Changemakers may not be the most likable people, and they may be even hated and despised at their time of existence. They may be regarded as traitors to crowns, nations, and countries, but in the end, they are always the kind of people that forces the type of change that society needs to adapt to in order to continue being a good one. Both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X forced the discourse on the granting of civil rights to Black Americans. Gandhi used the doctrine of non-compliance to force the British Army into granting India its independence. Leonidas of Sparta went against the counsel of his people to face the Persians that were intent on the domination of Greece. The aftermath of this defiance was Greece uniting to defeat the Persian army. Julius Caesar, upon becoming a dictator, had breached the notions of the Republic, ensuring that the only path forward for Rome's survival was to be an empire. And Nelson Mandela was willing to fight with whatever tactics necessary to end the state of apartheid South Africa. There are countless examples of these people in history, and regardless of their own personal failings, a changemaker's actions are nevertheless vital to the existence and history of their nation, especially when it comes to social movements. But let me be clear on one thing: change is change, and is neither good nor bad. How change is perceived is simply due to human perception. Keep that in mind as we continue this journey.
Go on.
Now, the thing that most societies want you to believe is the fact that the individual has no real power to inspire change. To believe this fiction is actively required by the rulers of that society as a means of inducing a state of powerlessness in the ruled. But if there is any real need for change in a society and you feel it, understand that you are not the only person that feels that way. And the brave ones that have the gall to stand up and demand this type of change find that the people with the same demands will come to them. When it comes to the management of people in a society, the key thing that every government relies on to maintain a smooth operation is compliance. The act of compliance to laws, rules, and directives is the single thing that is required of you, the citizen, for the cage of government to successfully detain you. After all, you are governed with your own consent. But there is this tiny problematic thing you were born with called free will that tends to make you a very bad tool to use, I mean, think of it. A well-maintained gun in the hands of an eager soldier easily fires once trigger is pulled. Yet a well-educated and informed individual only becomes more skeptical to the reality of his existence as he recognizes how he or she is being continually taken advantage of. This is why curated messaging and conditioning on the part of the education system, the church, and the media is always required to dumb you down and make you more pliable. And the consequence of us all being glued to screens is also why the media is eternally married to governments in an unholy matrimony of thought control. And I will tell you that governments tend to love a well-controlled citizenry, because then they can continue to enact policies that may not be so beneficial to the well-being of the individual, yet acceptable as a means of achieving the greater good.
It's all about the greater good.
The greater good.
Which is a vague enough statement which allows for rug sweeping of government indiscretions. However, there are people that will not be willing to endure this greater good due to their own reasons. It could be empathy for their fellow man, or anger at their circumstances that forces them to want to bend society to their will. These individuals are those that have come to be known through human history as the changemakers. Society needs changemakers because they dare to go against the well-known complacency in favor of truth, and truth's value as a product demands an unimaginably high price to be paid. Yet they gladly pay it so you, the complacent coward, can at least have some of the cobwebs removed from your eyes so you can see your actual reality. For an example of this, after the Sharpeville massacre in 1960, where police killed 69 black protesters in then apartheid South Africa, Nelson Mandela will co-found and become the commander-in-chief of Umkhonto Sizwe, or MK, which became the arm wing of the ANC. They abandoned their reliance on non-violence in favor of well-planned bombings on economic infrastructure, like fuel storage tanks and electric pylons, which will inevitably lead to human casualties, even if that was not the goal. The series of bombings was the reason why Mandela was arrested and imprisoned in 1962 until 1990. And while these actions can be regarded as barbaric and inhuman, it eventually led to a bigger international light being shown on what history has come to know as a disgusting affair, and the eventual end of apartheid rule in South Africa. Mandela himself will remain on the terrorist watch list until 2008. I guess Obama was good for something after all. So if the changemaker is important in societies, then how come they are often branded as hate mongers? Well, my friends, you are finally welcome to class, and let me school you. You see, love is competition, but hatred is unifying. That's why you love your girlfriend and don't want to share her, yet you are willing to team up with her worst enemies to destroy her when she cheats on you. In that same vein, if a government can certainly force you or say educate you enough to hate the changemaker, then they don't have to fight them themselves. You can do that job for them as their good foot soldier. This is what is often referred to as a useful idiot. Because the reality is that no man is an island unto himself, and an organized and informed citizenry are infinitely more capable of disrupting any governments, regardless of financial and technological resources. I have always found it mind-boggling that so many people love Star Wars and V for Vendetta, yet miss this point entirely. The most terrifying thing about the actions of a changemaker is the fact that it often lights a flame that can be wielded for good or bad to enact real changes. In case you think this is me overstretching, then understand that it's no coincidence that Nigel Farage was on the Free Tommy Robinson bandwagon while Reform Party was in its initial stages. The fire that the followers of Tommy Robinson brought to that party was what allowed it to take roots. And this is also why people were angry at Farage for distancing himself from Tommy when it was not politically expedient, because the one thing you can always rely on a politician to do well is betray their principles in the name of self-preservation. It's just how the game is played. I have said this before and I will say it again that I have no faith in any governments to be able to solve any human issues with bureaucracy and policy. My faith is in humans and the human condition to live well, thrive and survive, because at the end of the day, human issues can only be solved by humans themselves and nothing else. So yes, we must cherish our changemakers because they show you that you have always had the keys to your own prison cell. The only difference is that you were scared shitless to use it. I want you to internalize that everything taken for granted now, like your civil liberties, came as a result of someone willing to push a social barrier that marked them as an outcast. It should be them that you thank for your current rights, and don't ever forget that. Thank the suffragettes for their willingness to be demeaned and abused to gain women the vote and other privileges enjoyed in our modern times. And toast your local drug peddler for risking imprisonment to show you the benefits of psychedelics on the mind, and also the fact that sometimes a herb is better for relaxing this Christmas season than a freely procured kidney poison. I wish you and your family a great and memorable holidays. Till next year, friends.